There's so much potential in reducing demand and reducing consumption in the existing building stock that this should be put as a priority.
Welcome to Everything is Changing. Today, we are talking about how Europe can fix its buildings and why better data might be the key to making that happen. I'm joined by Joana Mundó from the ReLife Project. Joana, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
First of all, can we get to know you a bit? Who are you, your role, and how are you involved in the ReLife Project?
So I'm Joana Mundó, and I'm involved in the ReLife projects through Ecoserveis, which is a Spanish consultancy based in Barcelona, and then who work mainly on the socioeconomical aspects of energy. And in the ReLife project, we are the partners in charge of analyzing the market and providing functionalities and specifications especially for the financial service of the platform.
So today we're going to talk about the EU construction sector and the building stock and the problems around it, basically. But I want to start very simply. What is the main problem with Europe's building stock today? I've seen that in ReLife's report, around 75% of residential buildings have poor energy performance. Also, over 34% of energy-related emissions come directly from the buildings. I think these numbers are very striking. What would you say?
Yeah, we have to consider that the building sector is the larger energy consumer in Europe. It accounts for more than 40% of the energy consumption. And we have around 75% of buildings that are inefficient, and most of them will remain there in 2050. So for doing the energy transition and for achieving the climate goals that the European Union has set, we rely largely on the existing building stock. So it is very important to set ambitious standards for the new buildings, but it's even more important to act on the existing building stock.
So we need renovation, basically.
Exactly. So that's why we need to do a lot of efforts to renovate buildings, because it's a very complex market. So we are of the total of building stock, or as you said, 75% are residential buildings, and this means a very fragmented market. Also, around half of the population lives in multi-owner buildings. That means difficulties for decision making. So it involves collective decision making if you want to do a renovation, and it becomes very difficult also to reach agreement between the different building owners. There's also in the rental market, you have the split incentive dilemma. So it means that who is doing the investments in renovation are not the ones receiving the benefits. So we have to also find some ways to do it attractive in the rental market and to overcome these barriers. And it's also renovation. It's also an action that is disruptive, because it many times involves leaving your house, or noise, or dust, or whatever. So there are a number of barriers that are blocking the market, also some related to the high upfront cost and long paybacks of these renovations that can go up to 15, 20 years to recover the investment. So overall, it makes energy renovation quite difficult. And we have renovation rates now that are like an average of 1% in Europe. And it's important to boost this percentage if we want to reach the climate targets and reduce also energy dependence from external countries.
Exactly. And would you say that the building sector is a big focus for climate policy in the EU? Because it feels like it is something we often forget when we talk about green transition. And I'm trying to look from an ordinary citizen perspective, which also includes me, because when I look at buildings, I don't see them as something dangerous to climate. You know, we're talking about road transportation, ships, airplanes. Everyone is well aware that these are causing high carbon emissions and greenhouse gases. But when it comes to buildings, they look so innocent. You know, they're just standing there. So, yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, it's more invisible, and that's why it's also not a priority from the, let's say, the demand side. And that's one of the factors that there's not demand of energy renovation. It's something that is not tangible. It's much more attractive to renovate your kitchen or your bathroom because it's practice. It's something very practical that you use every day, and this is something that motivates people. But when it comes to energy renovation, it's not that tangible, and it takes some time also to notice the benefits. So yeah, this is something that we have to address by more information and raising awareness among people on what's the role of buildings and the real need of renovating buildings. It's what the European Union calls the energy efficiency first principles. So when we think about the energy transition, we always think about installing more power, like PV plants, wind power, etc. But it's even more important to reduce the energy demand. That's actually more powerful right now, without forgetting the renewables, of course. But there's so much potential in reducing demand and reducing consumption in the existing building stock that they should be put as a priority.
What you said is, I think, very important because now that we are facing the second big energy crisis in the past 5 years, and obviously the EU is well aware and trying to accelerate the transformation to renewables, but it's not going to happen in one day. So also cutting the demand side is very important when we talk about reducing the dependency on fossil fuels and imported energy, which the EU is very dependent on third countries. So, Joanna, the EU has introduced initiatives like the renovation wave. They aim to double the renovation of buildings by 2030. And then we have Fit for 55. What are they actually trying to tackle?
Well, the European Union knows very well the gap we have with the building stock, and it has deployed a very comprehensive set of regulations and initiatives to foster this renovation and the upgrading of the building stock. And I would say the most important one is the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, so the PVD, which in its recast has set also some ambitious targets and ambitious measures like the minimum energy performance standards, or rethinking the energy performance certificates. But yeah, there are also some initiatives like the renovation wave that sets like a strategic vision for fostering energy renovation, and it's it pictures energy renovation as a win-win solution. So not only as a way to achieve climate goals, energy security, etc., but also as a way to consolidate the construction sector from the economical perspective. Also, the social aspects related to increasing the health and the comfort at home, etc., etc. So, yeah, so it recognizes the gaps and it sets some targets, and there are other initiatives like the new European Bauhaus, for example, that integrates also the cultural and the inclusion perspectives to this green transition. So it is a good moment. From the policy perspective to try to boost this and unlock this energy renovation market.
Yeah. So now the hard question comes, and also we are going into your area because you're in the more financial side of this project. If these initiatives exist, as we said, Fit for 55 and the renovation wave, why are renovation rates still so slow? I read that only 1% of buildings are renovated each year, which seems far from enough from my perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, and also this 1%, it's mostly soft renovation measures that doesn't have big impact. So, yeah, we need something that helps liberating this and this market and increasing drastically and the energy renovation. Why? Well, there are a number of reasons. Some of them I already pointed them out, like the social barriers related to collective decision making, to the split incentive dilemma between tenants and landlords, but the disruption of the renovations themselves. But I would say that in a general way, the energy renovation market is still very fragmented. So, especially when it comes to residential sector, it's very fragmented in terms of ownership. It's very diverse across the European Union. So we have very different building stock characteristics, very different solutions that would be appropriate for the different contexts. And we have also a lot of fragmentation in the supply side. So the companies providing these kind of solutions, it's still quite difficult to find the companies that offer a comprehensive renovation, and that so many of them are specialized either on lighting or on changing windows, and some offer financial services to tackle the upfront costs, some others not. So it's quite difficult also to compare the different options in the market, and it's also discourages people. And then we have also the financial gap. So from the financial institutions' perspective, they tend to prefer larger investments that are more cost efficient for them and have larger impacts and less risk. And having a market so fragmented, it makes the financial institutions perceive them as a higher risk. And we have to consider that if we want to achieve these 2% of renovation rates, we need the private finance to jump in, because the possibilities of the public sector doesn't allow for driving this. So it's true that the public institutions are driving this change and these energy renovation efforts, by providing tax incentives, by providing subsidies, by providing sub loans and other ways. But they are not enough. So we need the private sector to find this attractive and to jump in.
And how do you aim to attract the private fundings? I think here what ReLife does is very important, providing data accessibility, for example. And so what is the strategy to attract the private funding?
Well, we need to, for example, strategies for aggregating projects could be a way, and also looking for private-public partnerships, or using, for example, public banks as a leverage for the private financial sector. But more specifically, within the ReLife project, what we are developing is a platform that has 3 different services. And one of them is targeting specifically financial institutions or, let's say, multi-owner of buildings. So they can manage and analyze and make assessments for energy renovation in an aggregated way. So they can manage a portfolio of different projects, and they can include the energy indicators in their risk assessment, which is something that is not usually done through financial institutions. They do an economic assessment, and they don't consider that the energy savings are a sort of guarantee for the future as well.
And let's talk more about the ReLife. So we basically talked about the solutions, and you also a bit mentioned on what does ReLife do. But you have a platform, an open access platform, right? What does it provide to users other than financial? You said they are giving financial insights and risk analysis, but how does this platform actually work? Let me ask.
So it has three main services, and I explained that the one for financial institutions, but actually the ReLife project is very much focused on the residential sector, of fostering this renovation among the individual owners. And so we have three services. One is the Home Assistant, which is designed for individual homeowners or small owners. And it provides technical and economical data for energy renovation. So you have to input some data on your building, and we've tried to do it as simple as possible for the end user, so they don't have to include like very complex data from the building. And then you can browse different technical options, and it provides also some economic indicators and some potential financial schemes that you can use for funding the renovation. This is very important because one of the barriers that we have in energy renovation is that we don't usually find a neutral source of information supporting homeowners in the decision making. So they are always commercial information that we have. So we don't have a source without commercial interests to analyze the different options. And ReLife intends to tackle this gap by providing this neutral and commercial-free source of information that supports decision-making for homeowners and make it faster for the decision and reduces their transaction costs of analyzing the market, analyzing the different options, etc., etc. So this is, let's say, that the biggest service that we focus on. Then we have the portfolio advisor, which is the one for financial institutions, multi owners of buildings, etc. And then we have a third service, which is targeting the policymakers and also urban planners and researchers, which is the strategy explorer. And it helps analyzing the whole building stock of a region in different scenarios and climate projections, and it helps also tracking different policy impacts. So we've tried to cover all the key stakeholders in the renovation process.
This topic feels like something we are going to discuss for the upcoming 5, 10, 20, maybe 30 years, because as we just said, there are so many buildings that needs to be renovated, and this transformation is not happening fastly. So what is the aim of ReLife Project in that sense? Like, what would success will look like to you in the upcoming years? Because this topic feels like an endless topic. So what does ReLife aim to achieve?
It aimed to be like a support tool for the different stakeholders. For us, it would be a success if the different stakeholders had it as let's say the first reference when it comes to thinking about energy renovation, because we've tried to simplify it a lot for the end users, to adapt it a lot to each end user. So we have three different services also to answer to the different needs and gaps from each of these market players. And so, yes, for us, success would be that people use the ReLife platform, and it helps to reduce the uncertainties and the perceived risk of this energy renovation, because we provide reliable and neutral information that helps people in doing this big step of renovating their home from an energy efficient perspective.
Thank you very much, Joana Mundó, for joining Everything is Changing.
Thank you very much.